Hi, my name's Lucy and I run Wild Roots Foraging and Middlesbrough Food Forest. I completed my training just last year to run local introduction to wild food foraging walks in Teesside, and I had planned on starting to do them this year in the spring, but obviously due to coronavirus everything's been put on hold for a little bit. I was really excited about getting started because I think there's actually quite a lot of people really interested in it. And they want to get started, but they just don't know where to start. They're not sure how safe it is, they're not sure about the law. And I have seen a couple of people make mistakes as well, and I think it can put you off when you make a mistake. So I thought it would be a good idea to just do a little free video for anybody who wanted to get started, and just to give them a little bit of confidence really, that they feel safe to go out and do it and they know what they're doing. So I wanted to talk to you first about the advantages of foraging. So for me, there are absolutely loads of advantages to foraging. First of all, it's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a penny, and it's so local. A lot of the time, most of the things that you can find that are edible in this country, you can find pretty much on your doorstep, or if not, it wouldn't be very far, your local woodland or your local park. It hasn't had to have any food miles to get to your doorstep, to get to your plate. It didn't have to travel on an aeroplane. It didn't have to travel by sea to get to you. You can just walk outside and go and get it. Today, we're used to eating a lot of our foods, they'll come from a farm, and the foods that come from farms, they only have really small roots. The soil gets turned every year. It's depleted of nutrients because of this. And the roots don't go very far, whereas the roots of the plants, wild plants that you find in woodland like this, they can actually reach down way underground and access all these different sort of nutrients that our foods that come from the farm and the supermarket wouldn't be able to get. And of course it's completely organic as well. You just do need to be careful when you're foraging kind of around farmland, because a lot of farms aren't organic and they do use pesticides. So if you're foraging around a farm, then those plants are likely to have been sprayed with pesticides as well, because the wind will blow it over. But yes, another advantage is it's food security as well. So for me, I like to think, if it ever happened, the end of the world, apocalypse, I would absolutely know what to do in that event to keep my family fed. I'd be able to go out and I'd be able to find lots of different foods to cook with at home. And it's just fun as well. It's really fun. That's a big advantage for me. I love going out, I love experimenting in the kitchen with different things and adding just native foods to, and knowing that it came locally, it didn't come from a different country. It's a really good pro for me, that. But there are some caveats as well. So that you have to be aware of before you start foraging. So first of all, there's the law. Everybody worries about the law, and actually the law does protect you to forage, but what the law doesn't protect you for is theft. So if you are trespassing on somebody's land, first of all, you've got to make sure that you don't trespass on somebody else's land if it's private land, and second of all, it's not your food. It's not. If it's public land, then that's absolutely fine. You can forage it as much as you want. But if the land does belong to somebody else, then it's not a good idea, and you will need the landowner's permission first. And also, if you're foraging for yourself, again, the law protects you. That's absolutely fine. But if you're foraging to make jams that you want to sell, or wines that you want to sell, then unfortunately the law doesn't protect you. So the law does say if you're doing it to gain cash, then the law will not protect you. So basically it's absolutely fine if you want to do it for yourself. And we do also need to think about conservation as well. So we're not the only ones that want these foods that are out there. We've got to think about the animals, we've got to think about the plant itself needs to reproduce. So if we go and we take all of the berries or the flowers that would have turned into seeds, then the plant's not going to be able to reproduce. And also think about the wildlife and the nature, that they need to eat that as well as a food source throughout winter. So what I like to do is I think I'll use my common sense first. If I walk up to an elder and there's hardly any elderflowers on it, then I'm not going to take any, because either somebody's already been there or that plant needs to get a little bit bigger before it can start providing for me. But as a rule of thumb, I just never take more than 10 to 20% from any one place, and then I know that there's plenty left for the wildlife and for the plant to reproduce. One of the main caveats that we need to think about is ID errors. So that is mistaking a plant for something else that is poisonous and that can be toxic to us. And this does actually happen quite often, but there are a few different ways that you can make sure that that doesn't happen to you. And how to do that is, first of all, make sure you've got at least 3 or 4 different books that are really good books, really good field guide books with photographs of the plant, and you need photographs of the plant at different times of year because plants change, and they change a lot as well. They can look completely different in one season to another season, so you do need to get used to what that plant looks like. So in early spring, a plant might be just a rosette on the ground, and by autumn it can be this high and it'll have seeds on it, and it'll be kind of like a skeleton, it'll be dry. So it's a really good idea to get to know the plants at different times of year. So if you've got at least 3 or 4 books and you can cross-reference the information, so if one, make sure that what the book says is true in the other books, then you can be sure that that information is true about that plant, because not all books will give you the right information as well. There are Facebook groups as well that you can add to this as well. I wouldn't say do that alone, but there are some Facebook groups as well that will help you with identification as well. Some books will only have illustrations, and I don't recommend that because the illustrations don't always look the same as what the plant looks like in real life, which is why I suggest the photographs. And what you also need to do is control all the variables as well. So you need to think about things like habitat. Where is this plant supposed to live? So if the books say this plant should be in a woodland and you're foraging near water, near a stream, then it might not be the plant that you're looking for actually. And also to use your senses, so you can use your sense of smell. For example, with wild garlic, which is what I've got around my feet here, there's a really poisonous plant that grows right next to the wild garlic called Lords and Ladies, and it can look exactly like wild garlic. But the key with that is if you smell Lords and Ladies, it doesn't smell anything like wild garlic, so that would be a dead giveaway way of knowing what plant you've got. So you use your senses, you look at the different identification factors of the plant. Is the plant hairy, things like this, and what does it smell like, what does it feel like as well. So once you've kind of done all of that and you think that you've got the plant that you're looking for, you think, right, I'm pretty sure this is it, you don't go eating it straight away still. You need to test it first just to make sure. So what I suggest that you do is to take a little piece of the plant and just rub it on the bottom of your inner lip and wait 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, if you're feeling okay, you take a bite, chew it, swallow it, wait 20 minutes. And after that, if everything's fine, you haven't really had any bad reactions, you've done all of the other things, you can be certain that you've found the plant that you've been looking for. Another thing that you need to think about is pollution as well. So, you know, a lot of people will forage at a roadside, but unfortunately what happens is with all the car fumes that go past these plants actually absorb the toxins from the car fumes. So it's not ideal really to be eating that, especially if you're foraging for your health. You want to try and go as organic as possible. So what I would do is I would just go a little bit further inside, and again just remembering that if you're foraging near a field, the farmer might have sprayed pesticides on the field, which might have drifted over onto the plants that surround the hedgerows that surround the field. So I would just go somewhere away from the field, unless you know it's an organic farm, and think about the pollution as well that the plants might be absorbing. So that's it basically. That's everything that you need to know to get started. I would suggest to start small and slow. So pick about 3 plants a year to really get to know. Sometimes you can overwhelm yourself with information. If you go out and think, right, I'm going to learn everything about every plant, you can get confused with the information like identification, and that's not going to be good for finding out which is the right plant. So what I do suggest is just do 3, maybe 4 max, and really get to know it, get to know what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like, cook with it, figure out all the different ways you can process it. Another idea is pick something maybe that grows local to you, so you don't have to go too far to find it. And yeah, that's basically, and maybe you could pick something you like the sound of. It's easy to access, easy to process. Some things are a little bit difficult for me. I found that rose hips are really hard to process, so I wouldn't suggest starting with rose hips. I would find something nice and easy that you feel comfortable with. But yeah, I think that's it. So that should be everything you need to know to get started. If you have any questions, message me. I'm going to be doing some more videos as well. I thought it might be nice to do a video on 3 common plants that you might find in your back garden or locally that you might like to get to know first. So I'll be doing that soon. Watch this space.